Hi everybody, I'm Mrs. Risto and today I'm going to show you the basics of measuring. To begin, I'm going to kind of explain the tools that I'll be using. So first I have a liquid measuring cup, I have my dry measuring cups, my measuring spoons of different sizes. I also have a spoon. I will need a straight edge spatula or a table knife, and a rubber spatula or rubber scraper. I wanted to briefly explain what tools I'm working with. So I have my measuring spoons, but within the measuring spoons there are normally 4 different sizes. So there is 1 tablespoon, that's the biggest one, tablespoon, and then 1 teaspoon is the second biggest. To remember the difference, I always say a table is bigger than a cup of tea. Sounds really silly, but it's true, and you'll remember it. Imagine yourself sitting at a table drinking some tea. Table that you're sitting at is bigger than a cup of tea. So tablespoon, then teaspoon, then half a teaspoon, fourth a teaspoon. For your measuring cups, you have 1 cup. For your dry measuring cups, 1 cup, followed by a half cup, followed by a third cup, and then finally 1/4 cup. And then for our liquid measuring cup, this is a 4 cup liquid measuring cup. There's 1 cup, 2 cups, 4 cups, and 8 cup sizes. All you need to know is this is a liquid measuring cup, and to read it properly by having it on a flat surface and reading it at eye level. I want to show you is how to measure flour. And with flour, a lot of people think you are supposed to scoop it, when in reality, when you scoop, it actually packs in the flour and will give you more than you actually need. It will give you an inaccurate amount. So you're going to use your spoon and you lightly spoon in the flour, and this makes sure that you do not pack it in and allows that air in between the different little particles. You then use I'm using the back of a knife, or you can use your straight edge spatula, and you tap very gently and level, making sure that you have a perfectly flat and smooth top. So you don't want to actually tap, you just want to very gently go back and forth, and then you've properly measured flour. The next ingredient I want to show you is sugar. And sugar, granulated sugar, is actually little crystals. So if we scoop sugar, it's not going to pack it in. It won't make a difference, and that's okay. So this is how you measure sugar. You're going to scoop it, use the back of your spatula, and you can go back and forth a couple times to make sure it's perfectly level, and you can dump it in. So that's granulated sugar. For sugar, you scoop. Another ingredient I want to show you today is how to measure brown sugar. So let's say I needed a half cup of brown sugar. To do this, you can either scoop, or you can definitely use the spoon to help you put all the sugar in. And with anything, you always want to start off with way more than you need. You'll notice with the flour, I got a heaping full cup of flour, a heaping full cup of granulated sugar. And you want to do the same thing with your brown sugar. Then you use a spoon and you pack in the brown sugar as much as you can to make sure that it holds the shape of the measuring cup. And the reason we pack brown sugar in is because brown sugar is sugar with molasses added to it, and that stickiness in the brown sugar affects its size and how much it's pressed down, similar to the flour. But for brown sugar, to accurately measure it, we want to be packing it in to make sure we have the proper amount. So after you pack it in, you level it, making sure it's smooth. And then the fun thing about brown sugar is when you dump it, it's like a little sandcastle. That's your goal. So it should come out like that. It's kind of fun, reminiscent of your childhood. So that is brown sugar. The next one I will show you is how to measure salt. So for salt, you might have a big container like this, or maybe you'll have a small container like a salt shaker. So let's say I need a ½ teaspoon of salt. I look at my amount, it says a ½ teaspoon, and you'll pour it. And you want to do this over a dish that you don't have any other ingredients in. So this bowl's empty because a lot of times with salt or with other small ingredients that you pour, or any ingredients that you pour, there's a good chance it will spill. So I have it over this empty bowl, and then it's overflowing, and I level it just like I do anything else. And salt is also kind of a crystal material, so it doesn't matter if it's packed or not packed. So pour it, level it, and then dump it into your bowl. If you're doing the scooping method, that's fine too. It kind of depends on your container. So I'm, again, heaping full over something that can catch my spills, level, and dump in. Another technique I'd like to show you is how to measure an 1/8 teaspoon. So the smallest teaspoon we have is 1/4. So what do you do if you want to measure less than 1/4? So oftentimes a recipe, especially in our class, because we modify the recipes to be for 1 or 2 people, it might call for an 1/8 teaspoon. So what you want to do is you measure a heaping full 1/4 teaspoon. This is celery seed. I randomly grabbed it out of my cabinet. It smells like celery. You're going to level it with your straight edge spatula, and then you're going to take the straight edge spatula and divide it down the middle. This is where that scrap bowl comes in handy. So I've got it leveled. I kind of make a line to divide it in half, and I flick it. So you're literally dividing it in half. It's fairly accurate. I would say it's really accurate, and it is a quick and easy way to get an 1/8 of a teaspoon when you don't have an 1/8 of a teaspoon. Next, I'm going to show you how to measure a liquid in a small amount. So oftentimes a recipe will call for a tablespoon of oil or a teaspoon of vanilla. And to accurately measure that, we know we can't use this because this is usually for a 1/4 cup and up. So we don't use our liquid measuring cup. You're going to use your measuring spoons. Remember, measuring spoons can be used for dry or liquid ingredients. So again, you want to have your scrap bowl, the bowl to catch all your extra crumbs or amounts. So I'm going to pour, in this case, my oil, and you want to pour it until it's to the brim. A lot of times I see people skimp on this. You want to go all the way to the brim until it actually forms like a little bubble over the edge. If I look at it more at eye level, you can see that bubble to the brim, and then you're ready to very carefully pour it. A lot of times I recommend, if you have to walk with it or move even a little bit, to have this bowl over it to avoid spilling. So that's how you measure oil. And now how to measure a larger liquid. So you might need a 1/2 cup of oil. And if that's the case, then you're going to be using this tool, the liquid measuring cup. I'm going to show you with orange juice. Let's say I need 2/3 cup of oil, or of orange juice, sorry. So I'm going to pour this. Let's say I need 1 3/4, just to be a little more complicated. So I want to pour it, and then, very important, I'm on a flat surface, and then I want to get to eye level. So I got myself almost there, and then I'm going to keep adding a little bit, get at eye level and flat surface. That's really important. You want to look where the liquid has that slight curve, taking you back to your science days, and that is where the mark should be to show that you are at your correct amount. So 1 3/4, I looked at it, it's at 1 3/4, I'm ready to measure. What I see a lot of students do is this, and they're like, yep, this looks good. No, always flat surface, always eye level to make sure you're being accurate. Next, I want to show you how to measure Crisco or any type of creamy ingredient. For Crisco, peanut butter, Greek yogurt, sour cream, normal yogurt, pumpkin, anything that is that middle consistency. It's not a liquid, it's definitely a solid, but it's more the creamy side. You're going to use a variety of tools. So I like to use a spoon to help me get it out of the container. So let's say I need 1 cup of Crisco, which is like a type of fat. This is vegetable shortening. And I'm gonna use my spoon to initially get the Crisco in. And I'm kind of just doing heaping full as well. And it doesn't really hold the shape of the container, so this isn't ready yet. So you can use the spoon to help you initially get it in. You can also use a spatula or rubber scraper, whatever you like to call it. Rubber spatula, rubber scraper. And this just helps, like get this messy ingredient to do what you want. You can push and then kind of smooth it out. You want to make sure you're not packing necessarily, but you're pushing this down so it is molding to the shape of the container. And then it's nice for scraping, like in a can of pumpkin, you can scrape the sides to get all of the ingredient out. And then you can use your knife to level it if you feel like you need to. I feel like this is pretty good. This tool did the job. So it kind of depends on what ingredient you're measuring, but you're going to need a couple different tools. Rubber scraper is also awesome for getting out of the container. Once you have it in there, you can scrape it and dump it back in your bowl. It's a little messy, not my favorite thing to measure, but you want to make sure you're measuring accurately. Another ingredient I would like to show you is how to measure a stick of butter. So, handy little helpful tip for butter is on the side of the stick of butter, it will tell you how many tablespoons are in the stick. So can you tell me how many tablespoons there are? You're right, there are 8 tablespoons. It also below says that there are 4 tablespoons and 1/4 a cup, 8 tablespoons and 1/2 a cup, and that this whole stick is a 1/2 cup. So that's really helpful to know, and it helps you with equivalence, which we'll learn later on. And then what I see a lot of people do is, what I've seen actually happen multiple times, is I'll say, okay, I need a 1/4 cup of butter for the recipe. And I will see a student like gouging out a 1/4 cup. I've seen it happen multiple times. Or I need a tablespoon, and they'll actually take the tablespoon and try to scoop it out. Not correct. What you want to do is take your straight edge spatula or your butter knife, and if I need a 1/4 cup, I know that's 4 tablespoons. It also shows me in here. And you're just going to make a little dent in the stick to kind of act as your marker. You don't really want to cut through the paper because that could transfer into the ingredient itself, which is not safe. So just a very small dent, not cutting through the paper, and then you unwrap it and you can see where you made your dent and you can cut through. And so a 1/4 cup is 1/2 stick of butter. Okay, the final ingredient I'd like to show you is how to crack an egg. Not necessarily how to measure, but how to properly use this ingredient. It's kind of its own thing. So for an egg, you don't need any tools. You just need your hands and the proper technique. So a couple tips with eggs. You don't want to crack it on the side of the bowl, because if you accidentally got shells in there, or it kind of cracked all over, half would go in the bowl with your like cookies or whatever, half would go on the counter, and you don't really know how much egg got in and how much was on the counter. So a good rule of thumb is to always crack it on the side of the counter, and then you want to put your thumbs together and you're going to push inward and at the same time pull outward. So I've cracked it just enough, hold it over your bowl and push upward and pull outward. Now, if you feel uncomfortable or if this is one of your first times cracking an egg, I recommend cracking the egg into a small dish before you dump it into your bowl of cookie dough or brownie batter or whatever. And that way, if you mess up or if you drop some shells in there, it's in a small controlled container rather than in with all the other ingredients. So push inward, pull outward. And you want to make sure you get all the egg white out and you're not wasting. And then of course, after you crack an egg, since it's a raw egg, you want to wash your hands.